Hi there and welcome to my first September Plan With Me video. This is actually my first ever YouTube video as well, so I really hope you enjoy. The first supply I'm using in this video is my Arteza notebook. I absolutely love everything about this notebook and I've been using them from the beginning of the year. I'm even a part of their design team now, but this video is not sponsored. The next thing I'm using are the Arteza Premium Watercolour tubes. The consistency of these is quite thick, which works perfectly on the Archer and Olive pages. The colours I'm using are Rose, Lilac and Spiced Apple. These paints were gifted. Finally, this Blue Pine Arts watercolour tin contains my collection of Daniel Smith watercolours. I'm using Rose of Ultramarine and Burnt Orange, two of my favourites. So first up is my monthly cover page. As you can see, I'm lining the other page here with washi tape to hopefully stop the watercolour from getting onto the other side. However, I wouldn't actually recommend this as it took more time and it didn't stop it from bleeding anyway. I'm now making up all the colours I think I'm going to need for this spread. I know I'm going to need more, but it's just so I can see what colours I'm working with. I personally like to pick a theme for each month. This is because I usually need something to keep my mind focused throughout the month. Otherwise I find myself spending too much time thinking about what to create rather than actually creating it. It also means I can decide how detailed and complex the monthly theme is, which I can change depending on how busy I am. Settling on this theme was a weird, long process, but basically I really like these colours together. I feel like these colours are the perfect representation of summer to autumn, and I love autumn. It's my favourite time of year. So I actually didn't like this cover page at all. You will see in the flip through that the tones of the colours completely changed. And that's because after making this page I played with the colours a little bit more until I found something I liked. I also decided that I liked the colours to go in a gradient order rather than randomised like I started with. Thankfully I was able to paint over the colours with just a little bit more paint after this video. This theme is also similar to my fluid art theme that I did in April, which you can see on my Instagram. I found when mixing the colours it was important to add a little bit of orange even in the purple, just to check that the tones were similar. I also tried to let the previous colour dry before going in the next one, because I wanted to create this layered effect. Finally, I finished off the cover page with this bold but fun typeface. You will see that I use this type throughout the whole month. The next spread of my September setup is my finances and Instagram tracker. I found that I only need one page for each of these, so now I always join these together in one spread. For my finances tracker, I jot down every outgoing other than my monthly living costs. So monthly costs would be rent, bills, etc. They have their own dedicated spread in the front of my journal in a yearly finance tracker. So for this spread I keep a track of all the other outgoings, such as food, petrol and business expenses. I then add them up at the end of the month and enter them into my yearly spread. This month I also added an incoming section, as I am trying to get a few sources of income whilst I start back at university this September for my postgraduate. If you want to know more about how I track my finances, please let me know below. And if you didn't already know, I also have an Instagram. But I'm guessing if you're here and you've actually watched this far, it's because you're one of the lovely people who know me from over there. For my Instagram spread, I plan and track my Instagram posts as I try to post every day. I also always like to include a little to-do list to put anything I need to remember, such as posting certain stories. To tie it in with a theme, I painted the waves through the middle of the spread to separate the two pages, and of course I used the font I used for the cover page for my headers. I found it a little difficult to fine line in the headers, as I couldn't see my pencil guidelines under the paint. I would therefore recommend doing this first. Just make sure you're using a waterproof fine liner, or it could be a mess. For my monthly this month, I'm using the typical vertical log. I like this setup as I am able to split work and university events down one side and all the other appointments and personal events down the other. Whilst this spread doesn't look like much, I use it most days to see what's coming up in the month. This log usually ends up looking very full and loved by the end of the month. As I only need a little bit of space to list all of the events down each side of the log, I went to town on the decoration of this spread. It definitely doesn't need to be this decorative, but I personally hate lots of white space. To fill this space, I painted the waves through the middle of the log, creating this beautiful gradient on the other side. This actually works really well, as I'm starting university on the 16th, and the pattern cuts through the log at this point, so it's almost like a lead up to uni. For this pattern, I simply started with a dark purple and mixed in more pink and then orange to lighten the colour. I didn't plan to have the lightest colour in the middle, but when I looked back I thought it would be a nice effect to start getting darker again. Looking at it finished, I really love how this pattern turned out. I also think I was getting much more used to mixing the colours exactly how I wanted them. I finished this page off by highlighting the weekends on the log, as this always helps me visualise my weeks. One thing I always need each month is a master list. Some people also call these brain dump sections, but basically this is a place for all tasks no matter how big or small. I like having this spread as I can jot down any task that comes to mind without forgetting it. I found when I didn't have this, I didn't want to put these tasks on a specific day in my weeklies, because then I had to keep migrating it, which was just annoying but also filling up too much space in my weeklies. So then I stopped writing them down and hoped I'd remember what I wanted to do, which of course I promptly forgot about. A master list fixes this problem, as I can put down whatever I want and I can check at the beginning of a week which tasks I want to do from the list, and then assign it to a day or put it in the notes section of that week. This setup has a lot of space for tasks, as I'm extremely busy unpacking, creating lots of content, and starting university. This was the part I really started to struggle not seeing the pencil lines, as the darker paint made it harder to see the dots too. This isn't a big problem for this spread, but just be mindful if you recreate this theme not to paint over sections you need or want to write with the dots as guidelines. These past few months I have included a habit tracker again in my setup. Previous to this I hadn't used one for over a year, as I found I just forgot to fill it out, and they ended up empty. However, there were some things I really wanted to get in and out of the habit of again, so I brought this tracker back, and I've actually been finding it really useful as it keeps me accountable. This is actually my favourite spread of the month. I created it by lining off a box for the habit tracker with washi tape. This meant I didn't have to be as careful with the watercolour to create the tracker box. Washi tape is a good thing to use for this, as it is sticky enough to stop the watercolour, but not too sticky that it ruins the paper when you remove it. I still recommend removing some of the stickiness by taping it to a desk or your arm before removing and applying it to the paper. The most satisfying part is pulling off the washi tape to see the neat lines. I'm so happy with how vibrant the colours look here. I did the same technique of putting the colours in a gradient order and tried to make the top and bottom lines match up, as if the pattern was flowing behind the tracker box. I included lots of things I want and don't want to do each day. For example, I like to track things like my sleep, skincare, work, housework and exercise. I'll check these off throughout the month. Hopefully it looks full by the end. Another spread I only brought in recently is this overview spread. The last couple of months have been really busy for me, and I felt panicked that I couldn't see what was coming up in the next month in my usual setup. Of course I could check my future log, but I needed something a little bit more detailed and for it to be in the forefront of my mind. I couldn't find any inspiration other than just having a small next month box incorporated into another spread, so I came up with this overview layout which has been working super well for me. Here I can see the next few months ahead and easily see what's coming up, which is especially important to me towards the end of a month when the next month is just a week away. I'm looking to my previous overview and future log to fill this in, but I foresee needing it even more when I go back to uni for keeping up with deadlines. Again, this doesn't need to be too decorative, but I'm tying it into my theme by adding the watercolour around the edges of the page. I will also highlight important dates in the same colours. These weeklies will also become Dutch doors, which you will see soon, but I haven't cut the edge off yet as it will be easier for painting the next page. Finally, here is my first weekly setup of the month. I usually like to set all the weeklies up in advance, but with my schedule changing a lot over the next few weeks, I decided to set them up as I go along, so I can change them up for what I need. If you want to see me set those up each week, please let me know, and I'll try to do a video on them too. For this weekly, I went for a nice standard setup of 8 boxes, one for each day of the week and the last for a notes section. I then tied it in with my theme by adding the watercolour waves through the middle. I didn't cut the page down for the overview spread because now it is much easier to paint this weekly without worrying about painting near the edge of the page. I simply penciled in where I was going to cut it down, so I definitely painted the parts I wanted to keep. I also should have painted the parts I left behind in the pattern as I went along, as I found it hard to colour match the watercolour beside it when I went back. And here you can see how I'm creating the Dutch doors. I use a craft knife and a cutting mat to cut the pages down. You can also use scissors, but I find it much more precise this way. This method makes all the weeklies look like they're together in one big spread, with the overview in easy reach. I have always included tabs on my weekly Dutch doors, as it means you can easily flick through to the week you want. And it looks pretty. As you can see, I have drafted in the Dutch doors for the next spreads, so I know how many pages I need, and I can add any other spreads I may need throughout the month after these. Another tip, when you're painting in your journal and the pages get a little bit warped or wrinkly, put the journal under heavy books or even a weight overnight, and the pages flatten right out. I really hope you enjoyed this September plan with me. I seriously can't believe it's September already, but at least I'm now prepared for it to happen. I hope to make another video soon if people enjoy this one. If you have any pointers on how to make these videos better, please let me know, as I'm completely new to this. Also, make sure to connect with me on my Instagram, where my messages are always open and I post every day.